I was born and raised in Pennsylvania in a family of 5 boys during the Depression, so I remember the tail end of the Depression and World War II, and they weren't such great economic times. But our family was oriented around the church. It was oriented around our family life, a lot of hard work and a work ethic. And the work ethic taught us all at a very young age that you worked and you were rewarded for this. But the important things in the church life for me came as a Lutheran, making a decision to go through catechism, which is somewhat different than others. So that catechism and making the decision to join the church, as well as being exposed to a couple of crusades by Billy Graham, was the time when I made my commitment to Christ, and it was a very important period in my life. But you said we exempt, our wives and our children because they are so important and they are at the top of our list. But there was something that was given to me in many ways. In many ways I earned because of something I wanted to do. And that was going through medical school and finally getting through the military and all my training. But going into medical practice was really astounding because to me it was the assumption that people will come to me in trust, and that I took very, very seriously. And although I didn't have a personal experience like Herman had for medical illness, I got to share those experiences, and I'm sure your doctors were very important. So I got to share that with new life coming into the world. There's nothing more marvelous in medicine than sharing new life and having delivered thousands of babies. And this is a very joyous profession. But then there was something else that happened that I feel very blessed with, because I had an inquisitive mind and I wanted to know how the world worked and how the economy worked and why we had recessions and depressions. So I was fascinated not with fishing and hunting. I got fascinated with reading economics. And then I thought speaking out would be a lot of fun, but it led to a little bit of involvement in a political life. I feel very lucky that I am blessed that I've been able to practice medicine, have my family, and also participate in public life, and I'm very thankful.
I'm curious. Are you prouder that you are a duly elected member of Congress, or are you prouder of your medical profession?
Oh, the medical profession by far, doctors are still rated a lot higher in the polling than the politicians. I think my most difficult issue to deal with is I'm my own worst critic, and I have to put up my imperfections. I don't know whether it works with anybody else, but I can't stand watching myself on TV because all I see are my imperfections. And that is what I strive for, is to try to learn and try to improve my delivery and try to deliver a message which I think is honest and true. And I think I come up short because I think I always can do better. But to find one incident where I think I really goofed it or I had to suffer through it, it's almost arrogant to think that I can't find any one thing. If I'd have only done this, things would have been much better off. So I have been so pleased, to be able to participate in the great debates of our country and to be able to practice medicine. And I think that my greatest thing, in family, I've had a great family. I've been married 54 years, have 5 kids, 18 grandchildren, 5 great grandchildren.
So no failures.
So everything is wonderful.
So no failures.
So, but the biggest struggle I had, it seems so incidental, and I don't know whether anybody ever goes through it, but it's something in a teenage year. Teenage years are important psychologically, but compared to what I've received and what I've been able to do and enjoy, it seems so incidental. And that was a physical problem, because I probably had set for a pretty darn good career in athletics, particularly in track and maybe in football and maybe even baseball. But I had some severe injuries, and I really never recovered from them to get to my top speed again. And that was a problem for me. In a teenager, I think maybe we can understand it as a teenager, but now that I look back, why was it such a big deal for me? But it was a big deal for me, but I think I overcame it.
My first question is for Dr. Paul. We've heard from others of their support of a federal marriage amendment. Would you support an amendment to the U.S. Constitution defining marriage as the union of one man and one woman?
No, I have taken a position that I would not support. I support DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, but I would prefer under our system of laws that all these problems be taken care of in a constitutional manner, which I would defer to the states. But actually, I would go even a little bit further. Me personally, my personal beliefs, although it's not likely to be achieved in my lifetime, is traditionally throughout our Christian, Judeo-Christian history, it was usually dealt with by the church. And I think the reason we fight and fume over this is because we have too much government everywhere. So I would say that the church should make this decision. That's the most important place to determine marriage. When you think about in the Old Testament, when the God that led the people out of Egypt was not a king. They didn't have a king. And then when they got to the Holy Land, they had judges. They didn't have kings dictating and ruling. But the family dealt with this, and the family dealt with marriages. But they had a judge to determine this. Matter of fact, when the people came to Samuel and said, look, we need more rules and more laws. We want more government to tell us what to do, and we need more of this. Samuel was old and ready to retire, and he says, no, that's a bad mistake. You don't need more rules and more government. You don't need this. The government will overreact. And today, I think this is what has happened to us. We have deferred to the federal government. We have way too much government. We should go in the other directions. Before you know it, the next step, what if the next step is, wouldn't it be wonderful if the United Nations defined marriage? I don't want to go up that way. I want to go back down all the way to the family and the church. Believe me, it would be a happier and more peaceful world if we went in that direction rather than asking the government and asking the king to solve all these problems. We need the family to deal with it, and we can take our message and learn something from the Old Testament, how there was such a strong emphasis on the patriarchal society and the disputes settled by judges rather than looking for big government.
Our final question. Every one of the six of you have talked about the importance of preserving life. And nothing takes life more than the declaration of war. I would like to hear from you, because nothing frightens a mother more than watching her son or daughter go off. Their pride in their country, but the fear for their child. Can you define the moral justification for war? You can use Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. What is the moral justification? Representative Paul.
You know, the early church struggled with this. I mean, Christ came, Christ taught about peace, and Christ was to be the Prince of Peace, and we were to defend that. But early on, the church struggled with this, and St. Augustine came up with the principles of the just war. I believe in them. I think we should follow those from a religious viewpoint, but we have a constitution that is very clear to guide us to try to prevent these wars, and that is that we don't go to war without a declaration. The wars that we have fought since World War II are all illegal, unconstitutional, immoral, and all were unwinnable, and it was tragic. It was tragic because we did it by failing the rule of law, and the tragedy now of these wars of the past 10 years. 10 years, and we have been so complacent. It added $4 trillion to our national debt. 8,500 Americans have been killed in these wars. 44,000 have come home wounded and crippled. Hundreds of thousands are looking for help. And we want to blind ourselves to this. And it isn't in our national defense. It was mischief. It's getting involved where we don't need to be involved. I think it is an utter tragedy of what's happening. If you want to talk about a family life, there has to be somebody in this audience that has been the bearer of bad news, either a loved one lost or a loved one crippled. And it's on and on. I had one soldier come to me the other day, and he was so against the wars, and he spent 3 or 4 tours over there. And he says, I lost so many buddies, and I don't know why we were there, and there's no signs of progress over there. But he says, now I'm losing my buddies to suicide. The wars destroy the family, undermine the family, as does the economic climate. The bad economics and war is two most destructive things to the family, and we ought to concentrate on that, and we can't concentrate on the economics unless you look at the business cycle.